I'm Abigail Mitchell, 28 years old, and I still remember staring at that lottery ticket in disbelief. $620, 000. My hands trembled as I gripped the paper that would change everything. But I never imagined my own parents would deliver an ultimatum at our family dinner. Give half to your sister who needs it more, or you're no longer welcome in this family. My father's words hung in the air like poison. Fine. If that's how it is, I'll disappear completely. And I did. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button if you've ever felt undervalued by family, and subscribe to join our community of resilient souls. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up, I quickly learned my place in our family hierarchy. My sister, Rachel, 4 years older at 32, was the golden child while I was perpetually second best. This wasn't just in my head. The evidence was everywhere, woven into the fabric of our daily lives. When we were kids, Rachel always got new clothes while I wore her hand-me-downs. They're practically new, Abby. My mother would insist, ignoring the worn elbows and faded colors. Rachel had the larger bedroom with the window seat overlooking our backyard, while I got the smaller room next to the noisy bathroom. Your sister needs more space for her, things was the explanation. Her things being the dance trophies, cheerleading memorabilia, and other symbols of her social success that my parents proudly displayed throughout our home. Report cards were another telling story. I'd bring home straight A's, and my parents would nod absently. Good job, Abby. But when Rachel brought home C's and B's, there would be celebratory ice cream outings and effusive praise about how hard she'd tried, despite being more of a people person than a book person. The pattern continued into our teens. When Rachel got caught sneaking out to a party at 16, my parents grounded her for a weekend. When I forgot to call home about staying late at the library, I was grounded for 2 weeks for being irresponsible and causing worry. College revealed an even more blatant disparity. Rachel attended an expensive private university, changing her major 3 times before settling on communications. My parents covered her tuition apartment and gave her a monthly allowance. When it came time for my education, the family funds had mysteriously dwindled. You're so smart, Abby. You'll get scholarships, they told me. And I did, but they didn't cover everything. I worked 2 jobs, mornings at a campus cafe and evenings at the library, while maintaining a 3.9 gigapascals in accounting. After graduation, the real world only amplified our different treatments. Rachel married Ryan, a charming investment banker with family money right after college. My parents spent a fortune on their wedding, complete with a reception at the country club and a honeymoon in Bali. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, my father said as he wrote another check. 2 years later, when Rachel and Ryan's marriage imploded amid rumors of his infidelity and her overspending, my parents rallied around her. Family helps family became their mantra as they paid for her divorce attorney, covered the lease on her luxury apartment when Ryan moved out, and regularly took her children for weekends so she could recover emotionally. Rachel never seemed to recover financially, though. There was always another crisis, unexpected car repairs, medical bills, childcare expenses, and my parents were always there with checkbook open. Meanwhile, I built my life carefully. After college, I secured an entry-level position at a respected accounting firm in our city. I lived with roommates, packed lunches, and meticulously saved for my future. When I mentioned wanting to eventually buy a condo, my father's response was, "Don't rush into anything you can't handle, Abby." The expectations were crystal clear. Rachel needed help. I needed to be independent. Rachel deserved bailouts. I needed to stand on my own. Rachel was fragile. I was resilient. The family narrative was so deeply ingrained that I almost believed it myself. Then came the layoffs. The accounting firm lost a major client, and as one of the newer employees, I was among the first to go. The economy was tight, and despite my qualifications, finding a new position proved challenging. My modest savings were dwindling after 3 months of unemployment, and the stress of job hunting was taking its toll. When I mentioned my situation during a family dinner, my mother said, "Well, you've always been good with money. I'm sure you've prepared for this." The same evening, my parents offered to pay for Rachel's children's private school tuition because education is so important. I turned 28 during my 4th month of unemployment. Jessica, my closest friend since college, took me out for drinks to celebrate. "You deserve something nice," she insisted, buying me a lottery ticket along with my birthday cocktail. We laughed about what we'd do with millions: exotic vacations, dream homes, charitable foundations. The next morning, nursing a mild hangover, I remembered the ticket and casually checked the numbers online. Then checked again. And again. The numbers matched. All of them. According to the website, the ticket was worth a substantial sum, not the Mega Millions jackpot, but enough to change my life completely. I sat on my bed staring at those numbers, hardly believing what I was seeing. After years of careful planning and responsible choices, after being the reliable, independent daughter who never asked for help, the universe had handed me this unexpected gift. The irony wasn't lost on me. The lottery office was housed in a nondescript government building downtown. I clutched my ticket tightly, still half convinced there had been some mistake. The security guard directed me to a waiting area, where 2 other winners sat: an elderly man reviewing paperwork and a middle-aged woman chatting excitedly on her phone. After a 30-minute wait, a lottery official called my name. Miss Patricia Wilson had a warm smile and professional demeanor as she verified my ticket. "Congratulations, Miss Mitchell. You've won the 2nd-tier prize." She explained my options: annual payments or a lump sum. After running the numbers, I chose the lump sum option. After taxes, I would receive approximately $620,000. "We'll process your claim today, but it typically takes 2 to 3 weeks for the funds to be transferred," Miss Wilson explained as I signed the necessary paperwork. She handed me a packet about financial planning services and wealth management. Many winners find these resources helpful. Sudden wealth can be overwhelming. Walking out of the building, I felt strangely calm. The money wasn't in my account yet, so perhaps it didn't feel real. I sat in my car, created a spreadsheet on my phone, and made preliminary allocations: 50% invested for retirement, 25% for a modest home purchase, 15% for an emergency fund, 5% for immediate needs, and 5% for something frivolous, maybe a trip I'd always wanted to take. That evening, I celebrated alone with takeout sushi and an expensive bottle of champagne I'd been saving for a special occasion. As I watched the sunset from my apartment balcony, I made a decision I wouldn't tell my family immediately. I needed time to process this change and make sensible plans without outside influence. The next day, I met Jessica for coffee and shared my news. Her genuine excitement was exactly what I needed. "Abby, this couldn't have happened to a more deserving person." She raised her latte in a toast to financial security and telling your family to shove it. I laughed but shook my head. "I'm not telling them yet. You know how it would go." Jessica nodded, her expression sobering. "Rachel would have her hand out before you finished the sentence. And my parents would be holding the door open for her," I added. "I just want to enjoy this moment of security after years of struggling." "Is that so wrong?" "Not at all. Your money, your choice," Jessica said firmly. "But they'll find out eventually." "I know. I just need time to figure out how to handle it." Over the next week, I researched financial advisors, consulted with the bank about investment options, and browsed modest condos in neighborhoods I'd previously couldn't afford to consider. For the first time in months, I slept soundly free from the gnawing anxiety of dwindling savings and unanswered job applications. Then Rachel called. Her voice had the familiar, stressed edge that signaled an impending request for money. "Abby, I'm in a terrible situation. The bank is threatening to repossess my car, and I need to pick up the kids from school. Mom and Dad already helped with my rent this month, so I can't ask them again. Could you possibly?" I cut her off gently. "I don't have extra money right now, Rachel. I'm still unemployed. But you always have savings," she pressed. "You're so good with money. Just a loan until I figure things out." The familiar script played out her urgent need, my supposed financial wisdom, her temporary crisis. I'd heard it all before, usually followed by a loan that was never repaid. "I really can't help right now," I insisted, feeling a twinge of guilt, despite knowing I had every right to refuse. Rachel sighed dramatically. "Fine. I guess I'll just lose my car then. I don't know how I'll get the kids to school, but we'll manage somehow." Before I could respond, she added, "Mom wants to know if you're coming to family dinner this Sunday. She's making your favorite lasagna." The sudden subject change was another familiar tactic, the emotional manipulation followed by an olive branch. I hesitated, torn between declining and maintaining my distance from the family dynamics. "I'll be there," I finally said, still undecided about whether I would share my news. Part of me wanted to see their reactions. Another part dreaded the inevitable complications that would follow. "Great. See you at 6. Rachel chirped her crisis, apparently forgotten. "Love you, sis." After hanging up, I stared at my phone, wondering if I'd made the right decision. The money wasn't even in my account yet, but already I felt the weight of expectations and obligations hovering. Sunday dinner would either be a test run for establishing new boundaries or confirmation that keeping my distance was the wisest choice. Sunday evening arrived with ominous storm clouds gathering on the horizon, matching my apprehension as I pulled into my parents' driveway. Their suburban colonial hadn't changed since my childhood, meticulously maintained flower beds, crisp white trim, and a wreath on the door that my mother changed seasonally. Currently, it displayed artificial sunflowers and a ribbon declaring, "Family is everything." The irony wasn't lost on me. Rachel's minivan was already parked haphazardly, taking up more space than necessary. Typical. I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought and headed inside, plastering on my standard family dinner smile. Chaos greeted me at the door. Rachel's 6-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan, raced through the hallway, screaming, nearly knocking me over. Rachel herself was nowhere in sight, though I could hear her voice from somewhere in the house, loud and irritated, apparently on a phone call. "Abby, there you are." My mother, Barbara, emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She accepted my obligatory kiss on the cheek with a quick pat on my arm. "You look tired. Still no luck with the job search." And there it was, the first subtle dig of the evening disguised as concern. "I've had a few promising interviews," I replied, following her back to the kitchen. "Something will come through." My father, George, sat at the kitchen table, newspaper spread before him. He glanced up, offering a distracted smile. "Hey, kiddo. How's unemployment treating you?" "I'm managing," I said, uncorking the wine to keep my hands busy. "She's had promising interviews," my mother repeated, checking something in the oven. Abby has always been resourceful. The backhanded compliment hung in the air. Resourceful. Translation: we don't need to worry about Abby. She handles her own problems. Rachel finally appeared, phone still pressed to her ear. "I have to go. My family's waiting." She ended the call with an exaggerated eye roll, my ex being difficult about switching weekends with the kids. Again. "That man has no consideration," my mother clucked immediately, shifting into sympathetic mode. "After everything you've been through." Rachel hugged me with one arm, her attention already shifting to the wine I'd brought. "Ooh, fancy label. Special occasion." I hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "Actually, I've had some good news. You got a job." My father perked up, folding his newspaper. "Not exactly. I took a deep breath. Remember that lottery ticket Jessica gave me for my birthday? It won. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me in sudden silence. Won what? Like $20, Rachel laughed. $620,000. After taxes. The silence deepened, then exploded into chaos. My mother gasped, my father stood abruptly, and Rachel's wineglass froze halfway to her lip. "You're joking," my father said. I shook my head. "The money should be transferred to my account next week. Abigail." My mother's voice shifted to a pitch I'd rarely heard genuine excitement directed at me. "That's incredible." Rachel set down her glass with a thunk. "Oh my God, Abby. Wow. You must be over the moon." "I am," I said cautiously, watching their reactions. "It's a huge relief, especially with the job situation. I'm planning to invest most of it, maybe buy a modest condo." "Smart thinking," my father said, his tone oddly warm. "But, real estate can be tricky. I'd be happy to look over any properties you're considering, and we should celebrate properly." My mother was already reaching for her phone. "I'll call the club, see if we can get a reservation for next weekend. The whole family should be there." Their sudden interest and approval felt foreign, almost dizzying. Was this how Rachel felt all the time? This automatic support and enthusiasm? Dinner progressed with an unusual focus on me, questions about my plans, suggestions for financial advisors. They knew reminiscences about how I'd always been the responsible one. I almost started to believe they were genuinely happy for me until dessert was served. Rachel, who had grown increasingly quiet, suddenly spoke up as my mother served tiramisu. "I hate to bring this up now, but since we're all together," her voice took on the trembling quality I recognized as her prelude to asking for something. "I got a notice yesterday. The landlord is selling my building, and all tenants need to vacate by the end of next month." My parents immediately shifted into crisis mode. "That's outrageous. Don't they have to give more notice?" my mother exclaimed. "What about the children's school district?" my father added. Rachel's eyes glistened with tears. "The rental market is so expensive now. I've looked everywhere affordable, but nothing is available. The kids will have to change schools unless I can find something in the district, and they've already been through so much with the divorce." I watched the performance with a familiar sinking feeling. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. My mother reached over to squeeze Rachel's hand, then turned to me with a meaningful look. "It's almost like a sign, isn't it? Your good fortune coming right when Rachel faces this challenge." And there it was. My father cleared his throat. "Abby, you mentioned investing your money. Perhaps helping your sister secure housing would be a worthy investment. Family is the most important thing after all." "You mean give Rachel money for a place I asked, deliberately playing dumb to force them to be explicit?" "Well, with your windfall, you could help her with a down payment," my mother suggested. "Or even buy a place and let her rent from you. It would be an investment for your future while helping family in the present." Rachel sniffled. "I would never ask Abby. But the kids. I just don't know what we'll do." The familiar guilt trip settled over me like a heavy blanket. I'd expected this, but the speed with which my lottery win had transformed from my good fortune to Rachel's bailout still took my breath away. "I haven't even received the money yet," I said carefully, "and I need to make smart decisions about it. This isn't a huge amount, not after taxes and spread across a lifetime." My father's expression hardened. "It's enough to ensure your sister and her children aren't homeless." "They wouldn't be homeless," I countered, feeling heat rise in my face. "Rachel could look for places in a different school district or get a roommate or—" "I can't believe you're being so selfish." Rachel's tears flowed freely now. "After everything I've been through with Ryan leaving and struggling as a single mom, selfish." The word hit me like a slap. How is it selfish to want to use my own money for my own future? "Because family helps family," my mother said, her tone sharpening. Your sister needs this money. You don't. How would you know what I need? I asked, my voice rising. You've never asked. You've never cared. Rachel has always come first, and I'm sick of it. That's not true, my father interjected. We've always supported both of you. I laughed incredulously. Really? Where was your support when I needed tuition help or when I got laid off? But the minute Rachel has a problem, everyone drops everything. The conversation deteriorated rapidly. Rachel called me heartless. My mother insisted I was overreacting to childhood jealousies. My father grew increasingly stern until finally he laid down his ultimatum. Enough. He slammed his hand on the table. Abigail, this is simple. Your sister needs half that money to secure a future for her children, your niece and nephew. If you can't see that, if you're going to be this selfish with your windfall, then perhaps you shouldn't consider yourself part of this family anymore. The room fell silent. Even Rachel looked shocked. George, my mother whispered, but didn't contradict him. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. So that's it. I give Rachel half my money. Or, I'm out of the family. My father didn't back down. Family takes care of family. If you can't do that, what are you contributing? 28 years of being second best, of working harder for less recognition of giving, without receiving crystallized in that moment. I looked at each of them, my entitled sister, my enabling mother, my dictatorial father, and felt something inside me snap clean in two. Fine, I said, my voice eerily calm. If that's how it is, I'll disappear completely. Enjoy the lasagna. I walked out, ignoring their calls to come back, and drove away from my family home, feeling strangely light, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying my entire life. The drive home passed in a blur. Rain lashed against my windshield, matching the storm inside me. Twice, I had to pull over, overcome by sobs that racked my body so violently I couldn't see the road. Years of suppressed hurt and anger poured out of me in that car, parked on the shoulder of the highway with my hazard lights blinking into the darkness. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone had exploded with notifications. 12 missed calls, 5 from my mother, 4 from my father, 3 from Rachel. Voicemails ranging from angry, "You're being ridiculous, Abby," to manipulative, "Your father is so upset his blood pressure." Text messages that started with demands, "Call us back right now," and gradually shifted to guilt trips. "How could you do this to our family?" I silenced my phone and collapsed onto my couch, emotionally drained. The apartment I'd once found cozy now felt like a prison cell. The walls too close, the air too thick. I fell into a fitful sleep, still wearing my dinner clothes, haunted by dreams of drowning, while my family watched from the shore. Morning brought no relief. I awoke to more messages and a pounding headache. I called Jessica, my voice still hoarse from crying. "They want half the money," I told her when she answered. My father said if I don't give it to Rachel, I shouldn't consider myself part of the family anymore. Jessica's outrage was immediate and validating. What are you serious? That's extortion. It's your money, Abby." I recounted the dinner in detail as Jessica listened, occasionally interjecting with colorful language about my family's behavior. "You need to come over," she insisted. "Don't be alone right now. I'll order takeout and open wine." At Jessica's apartment, surrounded by comfort, food, and compassion, I finally felt the knot in my chest begin to loosen. We analyzed the dinner from every angle, with Jessica pointing out manipulation tactics I'd grown too accustomed to recognize. "Classic, narcissistic family dynamics," she declared. Jessica's psychology major had often provided valuable insights into my family situation. "You're the scapegoat, Rachel's the golden child, and your parents are the enablers who maintain the system. I just can't believe they'd actually disown me over money," I said, picking at my pad tie. "Can't you, though?" Jessica asked gently. "Haven't they been sending this message your entire life? That your value to them is what you can provide or sacrifice? Her words stung with truth. Before I could respond, my phone pinged with a notification. Jessica grabbed it before I could, her expression darkening as she read the screen. "What is it?" I asked. "Rachel posted on Facebook." She handed me the phone. "You might want to see this." Rachel's post was a masterclass in public manipulation. Heartbroken tonight. My sister won a huge lottery jackpot and is refusing to help her own niece and nephew who are facing homelessness. Please pray for her to find compassion in her heart during this difficult time for our family. The post already had dozens of sympathetic comments and sad face reactions. Distant relatives and mutual acquaintances expressing shock at my apparent callousness. Even my cousin Tyler, who I'd always been close to, had commented, "That doesn't sound like the Abby I know. There must be more to this story." "She's trying to turn people against me," I whispered, horrified. "Classic triangulation," Jessica nodded. "When direct manipulation doesn't work, bring in outside pressure." The next day brought more unwelcome surprises. My Aunt Susan called ostensibly to hear my side, but clearly having already decided I was in the wrong. My mother's church friends sent me messages urging me to remember family values. Even my elderly grandmother, who I adored, left a tearful voicemail asking why I was being difficult. The final straw came 3 days after the disastrous dinner. I was at a coffee shop preparing for a job interview when I saw my parents walking toward me. My father's face was flushed with anger, my mother's pinched with worry. They sat down without being invited. "This has gone far enough, Abigail," my father began without preamble. "We raised you better than this." "I'm not discussing this here," I hissed, aware of curious glances from nearby tables. "I have an interview in an hour." "We wouldn't have to ambush you if you'd answer your phone," my mother retorted. "Your sister is devastated. The children keep asking why Aunt Abby doesn't love them anymore." The manipulation was so transparent, it almost made me laugh. "I very much doubt Emma and Ethan said that." My father leaned forward, lowering his voice. "We've consulted with a lawyer. Since Rachel often picked numbers for you when you bought tickets together, she has a case for partial ownership of the winning ticket." Ice flooded my veins. "That's a lie. Jessica bought me this ticket for my birthday. Rachel had nothing to do with it." "It's your word against hers," he shrugged. "And given your history of jealousy toward your sister," I gathered my interview materials with shaking hands. "I need to leave. Please don't contact me again until you're ready to apologize." My mother grabbed my wrist. "Don't you walk away from us, Abigail. Your father's blood pressure is not my responsibility." I finished, pulling free. "Nothing about Rachel's life is my responsibility. I need to go." I fled the coffee shop interview forgotten and drove straight to a lawyer's office I'd found online. The consultation fee was steep, but worth every penny for the relief Mr. Daniels provided. "Based on what you've told me, your family has no legal claim to your lottery winnings," he assured me. "The ticket was a gift to you purchased by your friend. Your sister wasn't involved in the selection of numbers or purchase." "But they said." "They're bluffing," he interrupted kindly. "It's a common intimidation tactic. Unless there's written evidence of an agreement to share winnings, they have no case." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by a fresh wave of betrayal. My own parents had tried to legally threaten me. Returning home, I booted up my laptop to email the company about rescheduling my interview. When I opened my inbox, I found dozens of emails I didn't recognize: lottery scams, investment opportunities, even a few charities thanking me for my generous commitment. Confused, I checked my sent folder. There were messages I'd never written, apparently sent from my account to various financial institutions containing details about my lottery win and personal information. Cold realization dawned. During the family dinner, I'd left my purse in the living room while helping in the kitchen. Rachel must have accessed my phone, found my financial information, and forwarded it to herself. She'd been planning this betrayal even before the dinner confrontation. A new email appeared from Rachel herself. "I know what you did with my laptop. Two can play that game, sister dear." I hadn't touched her laptop. This was a preemptive justification for her invasion of my privacy, twisted to make it seem like retaliation. The depth of the betrayal took my breath away. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about my safety, my identity, my future. Rachel had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and my parents were backing her play. For the first time, I seriously considered whether I needed to completely sever ties with my family. Not just temporarily, but permanently. The thought was both terrifying and strangely liberating. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed in my bed scenarios playing through my mind like a horror film on repeat. What if Rachel used my personal information for identity theft? What if my parents escalated their legal threats? What if they showed up at every job interview, every date, every new friendship, poisoning my relationships with manipulativa narrative? Dawn found me exhausted but resolved. I couldn't continue this way constantly, defending myself, always bracing for the next attack. Something had to change. I called Jessica, not caring that it was barely 6 a.m. "I need to talk. Can you come over before work?" An hour later, we sat at my kitchen table, steam rising from our coffee mugs. I explained what had happened and my growing feeling that I needed to make a dramatic change. "I'm thinking of leaving," I said finally. "Not just setting boundaries, but actually disappearing. New city, new start. No contact." Jessica didn't look surprised. "I've been wondering when you'd reach this conclusion. Your family is toxic, Abby. They're not going to respect any boundaries you set. But is cutting them off completely the answer? They're still my family." Jessica reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Biology doesn't entitle people to abuse you. What they're doing isn't love, it's control." We spent the morning outlining a preliminary exit strategy. Jessica, ever practical, suggested I consult with professionals before making any final decisions. Later that day, I met with Mr. Daniels again to discuss legal precautions. He recommended securing my assets and accounts my family couldn't access, and documenting all harassment in case I needed a restraining order later. Next, I visited a financial advisor recommended by the Lottery Commission. Ms. Patel helped me create a secure financial plan, including establishing accounts in another state where I was considering relocating. "Denver has a strong economy and reasonable cost of living," she noted, reviewing my research. "The tech and financial sectors are growing, which would be good for your job prospects." Over the next few days, I methodically prepared. I ordered a credit freeze to prevent anyone from opening accounts in my name. I changed all my passwords and set up two-factor authentication on every account. I backed up important documents to a secure cloud service and gathered irreplaceable sentimental items, my grandmother's locket photos from college, the first dollar I'd earned at my cafe job. I researched neighborhoods in Denver, finding a promising condo development near a park. I contacted a realtor there, explaining I'd be relocating soon and would need to move quickly when the time came. The lottery funds arrived in my new secure account. Seeing that balance, $620, 473.19, made everything suddenly real. This was happening. I was really going to leave everything behind and start fresh. That evening, as I sorted through old photos, I found one from my 5th birthday. Little Abby with missing front teeth beaming at the camera, while Rachel scowled in the background. My mother's hand rested on Rachel's shoulder, not mine. Even then, the family dynamic was clearly established. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was my mother. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Abigail, this has gone far enough," she began without greeting. "Your father is a wreck. His doctor says his blood pressure is dangerously high from all this stress you're causing. No, how are you? No acknowledgement of their behavior. Just another guilt trip. I'm sorry to hear Dad's unwell, I said carefully. He should focus on taking care of himself. That's all you have to say. Her voice rose. Your father could have a stroke and you're telling him to take care of himself. What would you like me to do, Mom? I asked, suddenly tired of the game. You know exactly what you need to do. Stop being selfish and help your sister like we raised you to do. The last thread of hope I'd been clinging to that they might eventually see reason snapped clean. You didn't raise me to help my sister, I said quietly. You raised me to serve her. There's a difference. That's ridiculous. We always treated you girls equally. We both know that's not true. I took a deep breath. I won't be giving Rachel any money. Not half, not a quarter, not a dollar. The lottery win is mine, and I'm using it to build the life I want. There was a stunned silence then. If that's your final decision, you're killing your father. I hope you can live with that on your conscience. I'm not responsible for Dad's health, or Rachel's housing, or anyone's happiness but my own, I replied, surprising myself with my calm. I need to go now. Goodbye, Mom. I ended the call and immediately blocked her number, then did the same for my father and Rachel. The sensation was like cutting heavy chains I'd been dragging behind me my entire life. That night, I made my final decision. I would leave in 2 weeks after securing housing in Denver and tying up loose ends here. I would tell no one except Jessica, who promised to check on my apartment occasionally until the lease ended. As I packed the first box of books that wouldn't be missed if noticed, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. I was mourning the family I'd always wanted, but never had, while embracing the freedom to create a life unconstrained by their expectations and demands. My last night in the apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by the few boxes I was taking with me. Everything else would be donated or left behind. The space looked barren, already transitioning from mine to nobody's. I opened a bottle of wine and raised a glass to my reflection in the window. To new beginnings, I whispered. To choosing myself. In the morning, I would load my car before dawn and drive west, leaving behind the only life I'd known for the possibility of something better. The thought was terrifying, but for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly untroubled by dreams. The interstate stretched before me like a promise, each mile marker putting more distance between my past and future. My sedan was packed efficiently, clothes, important documents, a few cherished books, and carefully wrapped mementos that wouldn't immediately reveal my identity. Everything else had been donated, sold, or left behind. I'd planned my route carefully, avoiding major cities where traffic cameras might capture my license plate. I paid for gas with cash and slept at small roadside motels, registering under the name Jessica and I had practiced. Not illegal. I wasn't changing my legal identity, just a buffer of privacy until I could establish myself. The journey took 3 days. I could have driven it faster, but I deliberately took my time, stopping at scenic overlooks and small-town diners. Each decision when to stop, what to eat, which route to take felt weightier than before. These were my choices alone, unmarred by family expectations or manipulations. Denver welcomed me with a spectacular sunset, painting the Rocky Mountains in gold and purple. My realtor had expedited the condo purchase, and the keys were waiting at her office. By nightfall, I stood in my new home, a modest 2-bedroom with mountain views from the small balcony. The space echoed with emptiness and possibility. That first week passed in a blur of practical tasks. I furnished the basics of my new home, registered my car with Colorado plates, and began applying for accounting positions at local firms. I established a routine of morning coffee at a nearby shop and evening walks around my neighborhood. My neighbor Lily introduced herself when she saw me struggling with a bookshelf delivery. She was about my age with an easy smile and a penchant for colorful scarves. After helping me assemble the bookshelf, she invited me to dinner the following week. It's nothing fancy, just pasta and wine with a few friends, she explained. Perfect for getting to know new neighbors. I accepted gratefully, realizing it was my first social invitation in this new life. The dinner was indeed casual. 5 people crammed around Lily's small table, passing dishes and trading stories. No one asked invasive questions about my past. When I mentioned I'd moved from back east for a fresh start, they simply nodded and moved on. Denver's full of transplants, said Marcus, Lily's boyfriend. Something about the mountains calls to people looking for change. For the first time in months, I felt myself truly relaxing. These people had no preconceptions about me, no established narrative of who I was or what I owed them. I could simply be Abby, not Rachel's sister, not the family disappointment, just me. 2 weeks into my new life, I received a text from Jessica. They filed a missing persons report. Police came asking questions. Told them you mentioned moving, but didn't say where. Call me secure line when safe. I used a burner phone from a convenience store to call her. It's ridiculous, Jessica fumed. They know perfectly well you left voluntarily. They're just trying to force you to make contact. What exactly are they telling people? I asked, pacing my living room. That you had some kind of breakdown after winning the lottery. Rachel's spinning this narrative that the sudden wealth triggered a mental health crisis. Jessica's disgust was palpable. She did a tearful interview with a local news station, pleading for information on her vulnerable sister. My stomach clenched. An interview? This is going that far? It gets worse, Jessica hesitated. They've hired a private investigator. Some guy came asking questions at my apartment yesterday. Very polished, very professional, claiming to be working on behalf of your concerned family. Cold fear washed over me. A PI could trace credit cards, track cell phones, find digital breadcrumbs. I might not even realize I was leaving. Do you think he followed you? Could he trace this call? The paranoia I'd been keeping at bay came rushing back. I don't think so. I've been careful, Jessica assured me. But maybe we should limit contact for a while. I don't want to be the thread that leads them to you. The suggestion hurt, but I knew she was right. Okay. No contact for a month, then we reevaluate. Deal, Jessica agreed. Stay safe, Abby. And remember, you're not doing anything wrong. You have every right to build a life on your own terms. After hanging up, I swept my apartment for anything that might connect me to my former life. I changed my email address, canceled subscriptions, and purged my social media account. I even cut and dyed my hair from long blonde to a short chestnut bob, just different enough to give me a moment's pause when I caught my reflection. The precautions felt extreme, but necessary. Each day brought new evidence of my family's determination. Jessica forwarded screenshots of Rachel's increasingly dramatic social media post day 37 without word from my sister. The children ask about their aunt constantly. My father had apparently joined a support group for families of missing adults and was quoted in an article about silver alerts for vulnerable adults. Meanwhile, I was building my new life brick by brick. I landed an accounting position at a small local firm, joined a weekend hiking group, and volunteered at an animal shelter walking dogs. I made acquaintances, if not yet deep friendships. I was careful about what I revealed, not lying but keeping my past vague. One afternoon, returning from work, I noticed a man in an unfamiliar car parked across from my condo building. He appeared to be photographing people entering the building. My heart raced as I drove past, circling the block instead of going home. When I returned 10 minutes later, he was gone, but the incident left me shaken. Was I being paranoid, or had they found me? I doubled my precautions, varying my routes, checking for followers, paying cash whenever possible. The constant vigilance was exhausting, transforming what should have been an exciting new chapter into an anxiety-riddled exercise in hyper-awareness. The breaking point came 6 months into my new life. I was leaving work when I spotted a familiar figure by my car, Rachel pacing nervously in the parking lot. She looked thinner than I remembered her designer clothes, replaced by jeans and a worn sweater. For a moment, I considered turning around and leaving through another exit, but I was tired of running. "Hello, Rachel," I said, approaching cautiously. She spun toward me, eyes widening. "Abby, oh my God, it really is you. We've been so worried." Her arms opened for a hug I didn't reciprocate. I kept several feet of distance between us. "How did you find me?" Rachel's expression faltered. "Does it matter? You're my sister." "Of course I'd find you eventually." "It does matter," I insisted. "How did you find me?" She sighed dramatically. "Fine. The PI tracked you through Jessica's Instagram. She posted a hiking photo and forgot to disable location tagging. It showed Colorado trails and we narrowed it down from there." Mental note warned Jessica about social media security. "What do you want, Rachel?" "What do I want? For you to come home. The family is falling apart without you. Dad's health is deteriorating. Mom barely sleeps." "Stop," I interrupted. "I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm building a life here, a good life. I'm not going back." Rachel's face hardened. "You can't just abandon your family, Abby. It's selfish and cruel." "What's cruel is treating someone like an ATM machine their entire life," I countered. "What's cruel is manipulating and gaslighting someone until they believe they're worth nothing except what they can provide to others." "Is this still about the lottery money?" "For God's sake, Abby." "It was never just about the money," I said quietly. "The money was just the final straw. It was about a lifetime of being treated like I matter less. About always being expected to sacrifice while you take and take." Rachel's eyes welled with tears, her reliable defense mechanism. "You have no idea what my life is like. I'm drowning, Abby. The second divorce, gambling debts. I can't pay the kids needing therapy." "Gambling debts," I interrupted. "That's new." She waved dismissively. "It got out of hand after you left." I was stressed. "But that's not important right now. Mom and Dad need you to come home." "Dad's heart?" "Stop using Dad's health to manipulate me," I said firmly. "His medical conditions are not my responsibility." "How can you be so cold?" Rachel's voice rose, drawing attention from people leaving the building. "This isn't the sister I know. The PI was right. The money has changed you." I laughed humorlessly. "The money didn't change me, Rachel. It changed how I saw all of you. For the first time, I understood exactly how conditional your love is." A security guard approached, concerned by our increasingly heated exchange. "Everything okay here, Miss Mitchell?" "Not really, Carl," I admitted. "This is my sister who found me, despite my wishes to be left alone." Carl nodded understanding. "Would you like me to escort her off the property?" Rachel's face flushed with indignation. "You're having me thrown out. Your own sister. I'm asking you to respect my boundaries," I corrected. "Go home, Rachel. Tell Mom and Dad I'm fine, I'm safe, and I want no contact." "This isn't over," she hissed as Carl guided her toward her rental car. "The family won't just let you disappear. And don't think your new friends won't hear what kind of person you really are." Her parting threat echoed in my mind as I drove home, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Rachel had found me once. She could do it again. And next time, she might bring my parents, or worse, legal trouble. That night, I called the only person I still trusted from my old life. "Jessica, we have a problem." In the 6 months since my abrupt departure from my former life, Denver had begun to feel like home. My condo, initially a sterile shell, now reflected my personality bookshelves lined with novels and accounting texts, walls adorned with local art house plants thriving on the sunny balcony. My job at the accounting firm had evolved from temporary position to promising career path with my boss, recently hinting at a potential promotion. I'd established routines that felt genuinely mine: Sunday morning hikes in the nearby foothills, Wednesday evening pottery classes at the community center, monthly volunteer shifts at the animal shelter. I'd even begun dating cautiously, meeting Thomas, a thoughtful architect, at a mutual friend's dinner party. More importantly, I'd developed real friendships. Lily from next door had become my closest local confidant, introducing me to her circle of friends, who accepted me without probing my vague explanations about family complications back east. For the first time in my life, I existed as just Abby, not defined by my relationship to Rachel or my parents' expectations, which made Rachel's appearance at my workplace all the more jarring. The carefully constructed walls between my past and present had been breached, and I spent the week after our confrontation waiting for the other shoe to drop. Would she return with my parents? Would she make good on her threat to expose me to my new friends? I didn't have to wait long for an answer. The following Monday, I arrived at work to find my boss Martin waiting with an unusually serious expression. "Abby, could I speak with you in my office?" My stomach dropped as I followed him, certain this was about Rachel. Had she called, emailed, shown up again? Martin closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I received some concerning communications over the weekend that I feel we should discuss." "About me," I said, not a question. He nodded, frowning slightly. "Several emails from someone claiming to be your sister, alleging that you've, well, essentially absconded with family money and abandoned relatives in need." The familiar mixture of anger and shame rose in my throat. Did she mention she tracked me down after I explicitly cut contact? Or that my family money was a personal lottery win that they demanded I give away? Martin's eyebrows rose. She did not. Though I suspected there was more to the story. He hesitated. "Abby, your personal life is your business. Your work here has been exemplary. I'm only bringing this up because she's apparently contacting several people in the firm." "I'm so sorry," I said, mortification washing over me. "My family situation is complicated. I've been trying to establish boundaries, but they're not respecting them." "No need to apologize," Martin assured me. "We've all got family drama. Just wanted you to be aware." He smiled wryly. For what it's worth, her emails read like someone with an agenda. Lots of emotional language, few specific facts. I left his office relieved but shaken. Rachel was escalating, spreading her narrative to my professional contacts. How long before she found my friends, my dating profile, my volunteer organizations? The answer came that very evening. I was picking up takeout when my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Hey, weird question. Did you have a sister come by looking for you, blonde, kind of intense?" My heart raced as I called her immediately. "Lily, what happened? What did she say?" "Whoa, calm down." Lily sounded startled by my panic. "Some woman knocked on doors in our building asking for you. Said she was your sister, and it was a family emergency. Seemed off to me, so I said I didn't know you well." "Thank you," I breathed. We're estranged for good reasons. If she comes back, please don't tell her anything." "Of course not," Lily assured me. "Want me to come over? You sound really freaked out." I hesitated, then made a decision. Keeping my past vague had protected me, but it had also kept my new friendships at a surface level. If Rachel was going to force the issue, perhaps I needed at least one local person who knew the full story. Actually, yes. And I think I need to explain some things. Over wine and the now cold takeout, I told Lily the unabridged truth, my family dynamics, the lottery win, the ultimatum, and my decision to start fresh. She listened without interruption, her expression shifting from surprise to outrage. "That's seriously messed up," she declared when I finished. They were going to disown you for not giving away your money, and now they're stalking you for abandoning them. The mental gymnastics are Olympic level. Her instant belief and support brought tears to my eyes. I keep questioning if I overreacted. If I should have just given them the money to keep the peace. Hell no, Lily said firmly. Look, I adore my family, but if they pulled that kind of manipulative garbage, I'd be in the wind too. She refilled our wine glasses. So, what's your plan restraining order? Maybe I sighed. First step is damage control. I need to figure out who else she's contacted and what she's saying. Over the next few days, an unsettling pattern emerged. Rachel had been methodical, contacting my workplace neighbors, even the animal shelter where I volunteered. Her approach varied. Sometimes the concerned sister worried about my mental health. Sometimes the victimized single mother abandoned by selfish family. The common thread was painting me as unstable, unreliable, and morally bankrupt. Most people, like Martin, recognized the messages as suspicious. A few, however, began treating me differently. The pottery instructor, who'd been friendly, suddenly had no time to chat. A woman from my hiking group canceled our coffee plans with a vague excuse. The final straw came when Thomas called, his tone cautious. Abby, I got a strange email from someone claiming to be your sister. It said some pretty serious things. My heart sank. What kind of things? That you have a history of taking advantage of people, then cutting them off. That you abandoned your family after promising to help them. That you... He hesitated. That you have untreated bipolar disorder and can become dangerous when confronted. The accusation was so outrageous I laughed despite my anger. Thomas, I've never been diagnosed with any mental health condition, let alone become dangerous. My sister is trying to disrupt my life because I wouldn't give her half my lottery winnings. I figured it was something like that, he said, relief evident in his voice. The email seemed off. Too dramatic, you know, but I thought I should ask directly. I appreciate that I set a plan forming in my mind. Would you be willing to forward me that email? I think it's time I took legal action. The next morning, I called Mr. Daniels, who referred me to a colleague in Denver specializing in harassment cases. Miss Ortega reviewed the evidence I'd gathered, forwarded emails, texts from friends describing Rachel's visits, the security footage from my workplace parking lot. This constitutes clear harassment, she confirmed. We have grounds for a cease and desist order at minimum, possibly a restraining order if it continues. Will that stop them? I asked doubtfully. It creates legal consequences for continued contact, she explained. And it establishes an official record of their behavior which protects you if this escalates further. We were discussing next steps when my phone rang. Jessica, who I hadn't heard from in weeks due to our agreement to limit contact. Abby, I have to warn you, she said without preamble. Rachel knows where you live. She and your parents are flying to Denver tomorrow. She told me they're going to rescue you, whatever that means. Ice flooded my veins. How does she know my exact address? I think the PI followed you home after the work confrontation, Jessica said. I'm so sorry, Abby. I should have been more careful with my social media. It's not your fault, I assured her, mind racing. Thanks for the warning. After hanging up, I called Miss Ortega with the update. Can we expedite the legal paperwork? My family is literally en route to rescue me. I'll file emergency papers this afternoon, she promised. But honestly, the police can remove unwanted visitors from your property even without a formal order. Don't hesitate to call them. I spent that evening preparing, documenting everything, alerting building security, asking Lily and Thomas to be on standby. I slept fitfully, jolting awake at every sound. They arrived the following afternoon. I was returning from a grocery run when I spotted my parents' rental car parked outside my building. Rachel stood by the entrance, attempting to convince the security guard to let her in. My father sat in the driver's seat, looking older and frailer than I remembered. My mother paced beside the car phone pressed to her ear. For a moment I considered driving away and hiding until they left. But I was tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder. This confrontation was inevitable, better to have it on my terms, with security nearby and legal protection in process. I parked and approached slowly, grocery bags in hand, providing a flimsy barrier between us. Rachel spotted me first. There she is, Abby, thank God. Her performance was immediate, rushing toward me with outstretched arms as if we were having a joyful reunion. I stepped back, maintaining distance. Stop right there, Rachel. I told you I don't want contact. My mother hurried over her face, a familiar mask of worry and disapproval. Abigail Mitchell, do you have any idea what you've put us through? Your father's been in and out of the hospital with his heart, which is not my responsibility, I interrupted firmly. I made my boundaries clear. You chose to ignore them and track me down anyway. My father emerged from the car, moving slowly. He'd lost weight, his clothes hanging loosely on his frame. Is this really how you want things to be? Abby, hiding from your family? Pretending we don't exist? I wasn't hiding, I corrected. I was starting over after you gave me an ultimatum, give away my money or be disowned. I chose option 3. We were upset, my mother insisted. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. No, you meant it, I said quietly. You meant it my entire life. Rachel always comes first. My needs, my boundaries, my very personhood has always been secondary. That's not true, my mother's voice rose. We've always loved you both equally. Love isn't just words, Mom. It's actions. And your actions have always shown who matters more. I shifted my grocery bags. I need to go inside now. Please leave. Rachel stepped closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You are not walking away from this. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? Dad's medical bills are piling up. I had to move in with them because I couldn't afford rent. All while you're living it up with your lottery money that should be helping your family. My lottery win. My money. My choice, I said firmly. And after your campaign to destroy my reputation here, you've only confirmed I made the right decision cutting contact. Campaign. What are you talking about? My father looked genuinely confused. I turned to him. Rachel has been contacting my workplace, my friends, even people I volunteer with, telling them I'm mentally unstable, dangerous, a thief, whatever she thinks will hurt me most. My father's gaze shifted to Rachel, who flushed. I was trying to find her. People wouldn't tell me anything unless I explained it was an emergency. Is telling my boyfriend I have untreated bipolar disorder and become violent necessary for finding me, I challenged. Was contacting my boss with lies about stolen family money helping you locate me? My father's expression changed, something like doubt creeping in. Rachel, what is she talking about? Rachel's facade cracked slightly. She's exaggerating. I just reached out to people who might know where she was. I pulled out my phone and opened the email Thomas had forwarded me. Would you like to read what she actually wrote, Dad? It's quite creative. As my father took the phone, Rachel's demeanor shifted from righteous indignation to defensive anger. What was I supposed to do? You disappeared. You abandoned your family when we needed you most. All for money. Money you didn't even earn. I didn't abandon anyone, I said calmly. I removed myself from a toxic, exploitative relationship after being told I wasn't welcome unless I paid an entrance fee of over $300,000. My father handed back the phone, his expression troubled. Rachel, this goes beyond looking for your sister. These accusations, they could damage Abby's reputation, her career. That's the point, I said quietly. She wanted to punish me. If she couldn't get my money, she'd take whatever else she could. My job, my friendships, my relationship. I was upset, Rachel cried, tears flowing on cue. My children were about to be homeless. I was desperate, and yet here you are months later still housed, I observed. almost as if your financial crisis wasn't quite the catastrophe you claimed. A small crowd had gathered at a distance, watching our family drama unfold. The security guard approached cautiously. "Miss Mitchell, is everything okay? Should I call the police?" Rachel whirled on him. "Police? We're her family. We're trying to help her." "No, Carl, no police yet," I said. "But I would appreciate you witnessing that I've asked them to leave, and they're refusing." My mother looked stricken. "Abigail, please. Can't we just talk somewhere private? We've come all this way." I considered for a moment, then made a decision. Dad isn't looking well. There's a coffee shop around the corner where we can sit down. But this isn't a reconciliation. It's a final conversation to establish boundaries that you will respect going forward. My father nodded tiredly. "That's fair. Thank you, Abby." As we walked toward the coffee shop, I texted Thomas and Lily with my location and a promise to check in within the hour. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't be facing it alone. The coffee shop was busy enough to provide background noise, but not so crowded that our conversation would be overheard. I chose a corner table, positioning myself with my back to the wall and a clear view of the exit, a defensive habit I'd developed since Rachel's first appearance. My family settled across from me, an oddly formal tableau. My father's hands shook slightly as he stirred sweetener into his coffee. My mother's lips were pressed into a thin line, her gaze darting anxiously between my father and me. Rachel sat rigidly, arms crossed, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. "You have 30 minutes, I said, setting a timer on my phone. "I have an appointment I can't miss." A lie, but one that gave me a fixed endpoint to this confrontation. 30 minutes to resolve months of family crisis. My mother's voice rose incredulously. "Abigail, be reasonable." "I'm being extremely reasonable considering the circumstances," I replied evenly. "You gave me an ultimatum. I made my choice, and you've spent months harassing me instead of respecting my decision. So yes, 30 minutes is generous." My father raised a placating hand. "We're here now. Let's use this time constructively." He looked older than his 64 years, the skin around his eyes paper-thin new lines etched into his forehead. "Abby, we're concerned about you. This behavior, cutting off all contact, moving across the country, it's not like you." "Actually, Dad, you don't know what's like me," I said quietly. "You've never really known me. You've only known the version of me that existed in relation to Rachel's needs." "That's not fair," my mother interjected. "We've always been proud of your accomplishments." "Proud, but not supportive," I countered. "Proud of what I achieved on my own while actively supporting Rachel through every crisis, most of which were self-created." Rachel made a sound of protest, but my father silenced her with a look. "We may have leaned on you more than we should have," he admitted slowly. "Expected you to be the strong one because you seemed capable of handling it." "That's the problem," I said. "I was punished for being responsible by being given more responsibility. Rachel was rewarded for struggling by being given more help. We were trying to give each of you what you needed," my mother insisted. "What I needed was equality," I replied. "What I needed was parents who valued me for who I am, not what I could provide for my sister." My father shifted uncomfortably. "When you put it that way." He glanced at my mother, then back to me. "Abby, I won't pretend we handled everything perfectly. But this lottery situation, you have to understand how it looked from our perspective. Rachel was facing eviction with 2 children, and suddenly you had this windfall. A windfall I earned by being responsible with money my entire life," I reminded him. "The lottery ticket was a birthday gift because I rarely spend on luxuries." Meanwhile, Rachel was facing eviction because of her own choices, overspending, gambling, refusing to live within her means. "My choices," Rachel finally erupted. "I got divorced twice. How is that my fault?" "The divorces weren't your fault," I acknowledged, "but your financial responses to them were your responsibility." After the first divorce, you could have downsized, found a job, created a budget. Instead, you leaned harder on mom and dad than expected me to join the support system when they started running dry. My mother's expression hardened. We're getting off track. We came here because we're worried about you and we want our family restored. On your terms, I added, with me giving Rachel money. Not necessarily, my father said, surprising me. We've had time to think while looking for you. The situation is more complicated than we initially presented. My mother shot him a warning look, which he ignored. Barbara, she deserves to know. Know what I asked, suddenly alert. My father sighed heavily. Our financial situation isn't good, Abby. Hasn't been for some time. George, this isn't appropriate, my mother hissed. She needs to understand why we reacted so strongly, he insisted. Turning back to me, he continued, we've been supporting Rachel extensively since her first divorce. More than you realized. We remortgaged the house to pay her legal fees and credit card debt. When that wasn't enough, we took loans against my retirement fund. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You remortgaged your home. At your age, he nodded grimly. The payments are challenging on our fixed income. When you won the lottery, we saw it as a solution to multiple problems. Rachel would be stable and we could pay down some of our debt. So it wasn't just about helping Rachel, I said slowly. You wanted my money for yourselves too. For the family, my mother corrected sharply. Everything we've done has been for this family. Except it hasn't been for me, I pointed out. It's been for Rachel and by extension for you as her perpetual safety net. I've never been included in the family that benefits. My father had the grace to look ashamed. I can see how it would appear that way. The timer on my phone buzzed, startling all of us. 30 minutes gone in what felt like both an eternity and an instant. Time's up, I said, silencing the alarm. Wait, my father reached across the table, stopping short of touching me. Please, I need to say something else. I hesitated, then nodded for him to continue. When you disappeared it broke something in me, he said, voice wavering. Made me look at what we'd created, this dynamic, where one daughter felt she had to vanish to escape us. That's not what I wanted for our family. What are you saying, George? My mother asked sharply. I'm saying maybe Abby was right to leave, he replied quietly. Maybe we've been enabling patterns that harm everyone, including Rachel. Rachel made a sound of disbelief. Dad, how can you— Rachel, please, he interrupted firmly. You've had your say for months. Now listen. He turned back to me. Abby, I won't pretend to understand all your feelings or justify all our mistakes. But I am asking if there's any path forward where we can be in each other's lives on new terms. The sincerity in his voice gave me pause. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of recognition from him, acknowledgement of the dynamics I'd been fighting my entire life. What would these new terms look like? I asked cautiously. I don't know exactly, he admitted, but they would include respecting your boundaries. No demands for money. No showing up uninvited. He glanced at Rachel. No campaigns to disrupt your life. My mother looked torn between objection and desperation. We just want our daughter back in some capacity, she finally said. Whatever that looks like. I studied them carefully, searching for signs of manipulation. My father appeared genuinely reflective. My mother seemed reluctant but willing. Only Rachel maintained her defensive posture, eyes narrowed with suspicion. I need time to think about this, I said finally, and I need evidence that things would actually change. Words aren't enough. What kind of evidence? My father asked. For starters, Rachel needs to send retractions to everyone she contacted with lies about me, I said firmly. With copies to me. That's humiliating, Rachel protested. So was being portrayed as mentally unstable to my new friends and colleagues, I countered. Actions have consequences, Rachel. My father nodded. She'll do it. What else? You and Mom need counseling, I continued, to address the enabling patterns and financial codependency with Rachel. I can recommend a family therapist here in Denver. Therapy? My mother looked scandalized. We don't need— Yes, we do, my father interrupted. We'll do it, Abby. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the final condition. And no financial support for Rachel until she completes financial counseling and demonstrates responsibility. That includes you, Dad. No more loans against retirement. No more enabling her bad decisions. Rachel stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. You disappear for months, then return with a list of demands about how we all need to change while you do nothing. I've already done the changing, I replied calmly. I've established boundaries, built a new life, and taken responsibility for my choices. Now, it's your turn. My father placed a restraining hand on Rachel's arm. Sit down, Rachel. His tone left no room for argument. Abby's conditions are reasonable, given the circumstances. To my surprise, Rachel complied, though her expression remained mutinous. We'll do it, my father said, turning back to me. Whatever it takes to begin rebuilding trust. My mother nodded reluctantly. If that's what you need, Abigail. I stood gathering my things. I'll think about it and contact you in a few days. For now, I need you to leave Denver. Go back home, start the therapy process, and demonstrate that you're serious about change. But we just found you, my mother protested. We can't just leave. Yes, you can, I said firmly. Respecting my boundary on this will be your first test of commitment to change. My father stood as well, helping my mother to her feet. We understand. Thank you for meeting with us, Abby. It's more than we probably deserved. As they prepared to leave, Rachel hung back, approaching me when our parents stepped outside. This isn't over, she said quietly. You might have Dad fooled with your boundary talk, but I see what you're doing. You're punishing us because you finally have power. I met her gaze steadily. No, Rachel. I'm protecting myself because I finally have clarity. There's a difference. We'll see how long your high horse lasts, she muttered. Some sister you turned out to be. I could say the same to you, I replied. But I won't because I'm done with this competition. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Rachel. Genuinely. She blinked momentarily, thrown by my sincerity, then hurried after our parents without another word. I watched them walk away, feeling strangely light despite the emotional intensity of the confrontation. For the first time, I'd faced my family as an equal, not the accommodating daughter or the resentful sister, but simply Abby standing in my truth. Whether anything would actually change remained to be seen. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. I no longer needed their validation or approval to feel complete. I'd built that for myself brick by difficult brick. As I walked home through the crisp Denver afternoon, I texted Lily and Thomas all clear. Family hurricane has passed. Drinks tonight to debrief. Their immediate affirmative responses warmed me more than the autumn sunshine. Whatever happened with my birth family, I wasn't alone. I'd created connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation, the family I chose rather than the one I was born into. And that perhaps was the greatest wealth of all. A year passed, marked by seasons of growth and careful rebuilding. Denver's harsh winter gave way to a vibrant spring-summer's heat, mellowed into autumn's gold, and I found myself celebrating my 29th birthday in a life that felt authentically mine. My professional path had stabilized beautifully. The promotion Martin had hinted at materialized. I now headed a small team at the accounting firm, specializing in financial planning for small businesses. The irony wasn't lost on me that I now professionally helped others achieve the financial independence I'd fought so hard for personally. My relationship with Thomas had deepened beyond those tentative early dates. He'd stood firmly beside me through the family turbulence, neither rescuing nor retreating. When I'd insisted on handling the situation my way, he'd respected my autonomy while offering unwavering support. 6 months ago, he'd moved into my condo bringing his architectural drafting table and extensive houseplant collection. We fit together seamlessly, both independent spirits who chose partnership rather than needing it. Lily remained my closest friend, our bond, strengthened by the crucible of crisis. She'd appointed herself my unofficial family detector, scanning the lobby for suspicious visitors and vetting unfamiliar faces at our building's community events with good-natured vigilance. All clear on the family front, she'd announce with a mock salute when joining me for our weekly coffee dates. Though I did interrogate that new mail carrier. Very suspicious mustache. Jessica had visited from back east, marveling at the transformation in my life and demeanor. You stand differently, she'd observed during her stay. Straighter, like you're not bracing for impact anymore. She was right. The hypervigilance that had characterized my early months in Denver had gradually eased. I no longer checked for followers or flinched at unexpected knocks. The lottery money that had triggered such chaos now rested safely in diversified investments growing steadily, while I built a life that valued far more than financial wealth. My family situation had evolved in unexpected ways. The confrontation in the coffee shop had indeed marked a turning point, though not the instant reconciliation my parents might have hoped for. True to his word, my father had enrolled himself and my mother in family therapy. Their initial sessions had been rocky, my mother resistant, my father determined. But gradually, with professional guidance, they'd begun examining the patterns that had dominated our family dynamic for decades. Rachel's journey proved more complicated. Her initial response to my boundaries was defiance, refusing to send retractions, escalating her narrative of victimhood. But when our parents stood firm for once, withholding financial support until she complied with the conditions I'd set, something shifted. Faced with actual consequences, Rachel had grudgingly sent the required retractions, though her messages remained laden with passive aggression. The financial counseling requirement had been another battleground. Rachel had attended one session, declared it useless and humiliating, and refused to continue. Only after 3 months of genuine financial independence, our parents holding firm despite her increasingly desperate manipulations, did she return to the program with reluctant commitment. My own healing journey had been equally complex. After the confrontation, I'd sought therapy to process the emotional aftermath and examine my own patterns. Dr. Winters, a compassionate but direct therapist, had helped me navigate the complicated terrain of family estrangement and conditional love. You're mourning the family you deserved, but never had she'd observed in an early session. That grief is valid even as you build something better. Under her guidance, I'd learned to separate my self-worth from my family's validation, to recognize the unhealthy patterns I'd internalized, and to establish boundaries that protected without isolating. 6 months after the Denver confrontation, I'd taken a tentative step toward reconnection, agreeing to monthly video calls with my parents without Rachel present. These structured conversations, initially awkward and stilted, gradually evolved into something resembling authentic communication. My father particularly seemed transformed by the therapy process. During our third call, he'd offered something I'd never expected: a genuine apology. "I failed you as a father," he'd said, voice rough with emotion. "I confused loving you with taking you for granted. I saw your strength as an excuse to place burdens on you rather than as something to nurture and protect. I'm deeply sorry, Abby." My mother's evolution came more slowly in smaller increments. She still occasionally slipped into old patterns, references to Rachel's struggles, subtle guilt trips, but could now recognize and correct herself sometimes without prompting. "I was about to say something about Rachel's situation, but this call is about you," she'd caught herself during a recent conversation. Tell me more about your promotion instead. These small shifts accumulated over months, creating space for a new kind of relationship. Not the unconditional closeness of idealized family, but a measured connection based on mutual respect and acknowledged boundaries. Rachel remained the most resistant to change. Our only direct communication had been through carefully worded emails, mostly related to necessary family business. She'd declined to join the video calls, sending messages through our parents instead. According to them, she was making progress, maintaining steady employment, adhering to a budget, attending therapy, but her resentment toward me remained palpable even at a distance. I'd made peace with this incomplete reconciliation. Some relationships could heal, others might always remain fractured. What mattered was that I no longer defined myself by those fractures. This perspective had inspired my newest project, a nonprofit foundation, providing financial literacy education to young adults transitioning from difficult family situations. Using a portion of my lottery winnings as seed funding, I'd created a program that offered practical skills, along with emotional support for navigating financial independence. Money is never just about money, I told our first group of participants. It's about autonomy, boundaries, and self-worth. Learning to manage finances is also learning to value yourself. The work felt like transformation of pain into purpose, taking the hardest lessons of my experience and reshaping them into something that could help others. Each participant's growth reinforced my own healing, creating a virtuous cycle of empowerment. On a crisp October morning, almost exactly 1 year after my family had appeared in Denver, I met with my financial advisor for our quarterly review. Ms. Patel smiled as she presented the portfolio overview. "Your initial investment has grown impressively," she noted. "And your decision to allocate funds to the foundation shows excellent balance between financial growth and personal values." As we reviewed the numbers, I reflected on the true value of the lottery win that had catalyzed such change. The money had provided security and opportunities, certainly, but its greatest gift had been forcing into the open the dysfunction that had silently shaped my life for decades. Without that crisis point, I might have continued in the familiar patterns indefinitely, giving more than I received, accepting less than I deserved, believing on some level that this imbalance was natural and right. Later that day, checking my mail, I found a letter bearing my mother's handwriting, actual paper correspondence, a rarity in our digital age. I opened it cautiously, unsure what to expect. Inside was a simple card containing a lengthy, handwritten message. My mother acknowledged with unprecedented clarity her role in our family's dysfunction. She wrote of revelations in therapy, of recognizing how she'd enabled Rachel's dependency while exploiting my independence. She expressed genuine remorse for the ultimatum that had driven me away and gratitude for the boundaries that had ultimately forced healthier patterns. "I cannot change the past," she concluded, "but I am committed to creating a future where you never again question your value in this family. Whether you choose to be part of that future is entirely your decision, and I will respect whatever boundaries you maintain. I hope I've earned back enough trust for you to consider, including us in your life again on your terms. Either way, I am deeply proud of the woman you've become, not despite our failures, but perhaps because you found the strength to overcome them." I set the letter down, eyes misty, with unexpected emotion. It wasn't a perfect resolution, nothing in real life ever is. Rachel remained estranged by her own choice. My relationship with my parents was still tender, requiring careful navigation. Complete trust had not yet been rebuilt and perhaps never would be entirely. But in this imperfect resolution was something authentic and hard-won, a family dynamic based on truth rather than obligation, on choice rather than coercion. We were all learning that true family bonds couldn't be enforced through ultimatums or financial manipulation, only nurtured through respect and reciprocity. The next morning, I stood on my balcony with my coffee, watching sunrise illuminate the mountains. Thomas was still asleep inside his presence in my home, a daily choice we both made freely. Later, Lily would come over to help plan our community garden project. Jessica would call to finalize details for her next visit. My team at work would gather for our weekly strategy session where every voice was valued. This was wealth beyond measure. The freedom to choose my connections, to build relationships on mutual respect, to define family by how people treated me rather than by accidents of birth. The lottery win that had seemed like such a crisis point had actually been the doorway to this richer life. The money hadn't changed me, as Rachel had accused. It had revealed the truth that had always existed beneath the surface of our family dynamics. And in that painful revelation had been the seeds of genuine growth for all of us in our separate ways. I sipped my coffee, watching golden light spread across the city I now called home. The journey from that shocked moment staring at a winning lottery ticket to this peaceful morning had been neither straight nor simple. It had required courage to vanish, resilience to rebuild, and wisdom to reconnect on new terms. But standing here now, I wouldn't change a moment of it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappear completely, not to punish those who've hurt you, but to discover who you truly are beyond their definitions and demands. And sometimes the greatest wealth isn't what you gain, but what you finally find the courage to release. If you've ever had to set difficult boundaries with family, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. What helped you stay strong? How did you navigate the guilt and doubt? Remember to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and growth, and share with anyone who might need permission to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my journey. May it give you courage for your own. Until next time, remember that your worth is inherent, not determined by what you give to others.